Yo, what's going on, guys? It is non-reality, and in today's video, I'm making a guide on Dehkia Thornwood. Now, before we get started with anything, we need to actually get the item to be able to do Dehkia. To get this, it's super simple. Just go to suggested. There will be a quest here that will show you how to get the lantern. This is the lantern right here. It's a quick quest. You just like you do like three talking quests, and you're basically done. And then this lantern right here will be able to spawn the Dehkia mobs. As you see at the bottom, there's a durability bar. You basically just feed it pry accessories of yellow grade, normally like Tungrad. Pry Tungrad earrings are good, or some other really cheap accessories to then fuel up your lantern. But let's actually get into what we need for this exact spot. So let's go over the buffs real quick. First, we want to make sure we grab the church buffs that we have right here, and then along with the villa buff. Now, I don't have one, but if you do have one, make sure you grab yourself an AP house buff, or if your accuracy is a bit low, you can also grab yourself an accuracy house buff, or even on the opposite hand, if you're a little bit more squishy, but you want to try the spot, maybe grab yourself like a DP house buff, DR house buff, maybe even an HP house buff, depending on what you have access to. A lot of them are sold out right now. Now, since this spot is a Dehkia spot, we're actually going to be grabbing ourselves Elixirs. Now, I'm just going to run through the ones that I'm actually using right now. We have the Destruction, we have the Shock, we have the Brutal Carnage, the Steel Defense, the Reaper's Elixir, Strong Life, Sharp Resistance, Fury. You can swap this for Frenzy if you feel comfortable and need the more AP and not as much DP. We have the Remarkable Will, the Sharp Detection, the Assassin, Death Elixir, Brutal Perforation, Draining, and Resurrection. And then also, if you have it, you can also use a Griffin Elixir, which will give you more Kama damage because it does count as a Kama spot, even though it is in Odalita. But I don't have any of those personally because they are almost always sold out. Next up, we're going to be using our simple cron meal. Yes, we're going to be using the simple, not the exquisite, just the simple one. Along with that, we're going to want to grab a perfume of courage. I would recommend using it at this spot. This spot does reward a lot of silver, so spending the little bit extra silver if you can on a perfume of courage is really nice to increase your trash loot by a lot. Now, speaking of trash loot, let's go into the Thornwood section right here and look at the items we're going to be getting. So one quick thing is if you actually want to get to the Dehkia part of Thornwood, you can actually click on this little target icon right here, and it will take you about over here. And then you can find a spot. If you don't want to have the hassle of finding a spot, just go to where I am right now. It's right next to these broken ruin area next to this dude right here. And you can park your horse in this little area. And up there will be the first rotation, or the first spot that we're going to be actually using. Now, for Dehkia Thornwood, let's look at this. We have the trash loot. This is the main trash loot that you're going to get at the spot. You will also get the Moonlit Spirit Powder as a secondary trash loot, just because the normal mobs still do spawn around the area. Along with that, we get Ancient Spirit Dust. You are going to get a lot of Ancient Spirit Dust. And then we will be getting the Venomous Night Fangs, which you can turn into Ibador's Scroll for even more loot later on. These are really good to do. You can get like 2 to 3 bill an hour, depending on the party. We have Kaphra Stones, also really good Kaphra Stone drop right here, along with the Ancient Spirit Dust. You do get around, I would say like 100. We'll give it an average 100 an hour if you're going at an optimal rate. We do have the Acrids, which you can turn into Acrid Crystals, but you're not going to be making a ton of money from that. We have the Massive Pure Magics, along with the Black Stones as per usual. Next up, we have the Long, which is used to make the Orzeka helmet, along with the Black Leaves for the helmet as well. And then we have the Spectre's energies for any black stars you would want to craft. And then along with that, we do have the Ominous Ring, which is one of the big money makers at the spot, along with 3 artifacts. Now, your main money, like I said, you're going to be doing the Ominous Rings. The drop rate on them is actually pretty decent. I would say around 2 to 3 an hour. Obviously, this is all RNG at the end of the day, so you could get 0 in an hour, you could get 5 in an hour. It all depends on your RNG, but I would say around 2 to 3 is the normal average for rings per hour. And then for the trash loot, 15 to 20 K is around where I would look to get to. Obviously, if you're a not as good of a PvE class, or you're just not as proficient as a PvE player, maybe you'll get around 10 to 12K, but you really want to reach for that 15K mark and then go up to 20 from there if you can. So now that we have all that out of the way, quickly talk about our artifacts. We're going to be grabbing ourselves a Kama damage artifact. If you have it, this will just give you extra Kama damage to the mobs, which they are. And then for crystals, I personally don't have any good crystal setups for this place, but you're going to be running like the general crystal setups of like Macalods, Rebellious, all that good end game crystals. Basically the same for every other spot that you would be farming at. There's basically no change in crystals from this spot to any other spot. But let's quickly check out the rotation. Now, I'm not going to like do a lot of it, but I just want to show you how it works. So we come up to this thing. It has to be one that says void infused. And then we drop down the lantern. Ooh, I think it dropped down. There we go. You see it opens up right there. And then we have the fuel. It does use, I think, around 30 fuel to start. And then from there, it will use a decent amount of fuel every so often. But you'll have more than enough if you have around like 100. But you just start out with 300 just from the quest. So it's pretty simple. You basically just try to group up mobs as much as you can. You want to group up mobs and you just want to try to basically kill them as fast as possible. I'd recommend grouping the mobs on one of the bats that spawn. It just makes it easier to kill the bats because the bats do move around a ton. Now, you don't have to kill every single mob for the next group of mobs to spawn. You only have to kill every mob except for one. So what you can do is you can leave one bat left behind and then it'll spawn in the mobs again. That is the basic thing for this spot. That's basically all you're going to do. Now, every once in a while, you'll have two events that can happen. You will have an event. I'll just run out of the way so I don't die. You have two events. One of them is the elite spawn event, which will spawn the bears and the wolf monster type things. What you can do when that happens is you can turn on Elixirs just for those mobs because they do drop way more trash loot than the other mobs. Some people do that to reach like the 20k trash loot mark. But if you don't want to waste your Elixirs here, you don't have to do that. But those mobs do a decent amount of AoE, so just be careful when you're killing them. They do have a lot less health though, so you can bomb them down really quick, and it is really easy to do it that way. And then along with the elite bosses, we do have one more thing, which is the Dark Knight, like you would see in a normal Thornwood rotation or in Crypt over there. A Dark Knight will spawn, which will have a higher chance of dropping a Ominous Ring, along with the elite mobs having a higher chance of dropping the Ominous Ring. But yeah, that's basically it for this rotation. It's honestly not that bad. It is a bit scary when you first learn it, but it's all about pulling the mobs correctly and just staying alive. But yeah, I hope you did like this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.